Welcome to AP Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Al Pilong, CEO of AP Leadership Partners, an executive coaching practice centered around a passion for effective leadership. There are two things I know for sure about leadership. First, leadership is hard. And second, leadership matters. And so my hope today is that through the course of this conversation, you will find fresh ideas and inspiration for your challenging but important leadership journey ahead. Thanks for listening. The AP Leadership Podcast is sponsored by CxO Coaching, an executive coaching firm focused on empowering leaders and driving results. And now, let's get started. In today's episode, we'll focus on a number of leadership topics, including failures and successes in leadership advice that we've received, hard decisions, bravery, confidence, and servant leadership. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Michel Koopman. Michel is the Chief Executive Officer and founder at CxO Coaching, our sponsor, with a distinguished career as a senior operator and entrepreneur. He has achieved success across both small businesses and global corporations, and today he is most passionate about helping others maximize their business success and leadership potential. Michel and his team dedicate their time to serving high-performing executives as growth advisors and executive coaches. Welcome to the show, Michel. It's been great to get to know you over these past 6 months as we've begun to work together at CxO Coaching. So I'm just really thrilled to have you as the inaugural guest on the show. Welcome, and maybe tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Well, Al, thank you for having me. And it's been an equal honor and pleasure to get to know you over the last 6 months. And we've already helped some remarkable leaders along the way. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I love what you said. Leadership matters and leadership is hard. And let's unpack that today. I don't think we have all the answers, but we've been around so many remarkable leaders that we've become an echo chamber of their success and the lessons they've bestowed upon us. You gave me a nice introduction. It's true. I have worked in large companies, small companies, served large ones and small ones. And through it, I've become incredibly passionate about the thing that I like, and it's unlocking the maximum potential of others. I like to see them thrive, and I like how it makes me feel. And I like having built a business around serving those leaders and the companies that they are employed by. It's an exciting job to be in. I'm also a father. A little personal story. I'm a Dutchman originally. I got a nearly 21-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son, and we live in Miami, travel a lot, as you can imagine, based on the clients we have, but it's a great life, and it's a mission I'm on now is to help others live an amazing life and maximize their own success and satisfaction now.
Wonderful. Well, let's jump into some topics around leadership. You have experienced, as have I, a lot of different leaders over the course of our careers, both as operators, as executives, as well as now as coaches, you longer than me as a coach. And so let's talk about qualities of leadership. When you think about what are the most important qualities of a leader, what comes to mind?
There's many lenses you can look through, but I've tried to unpack this, and I personally landed on 3 specific ones. I've actually written about this as well. I believe that there's 3 things that I would hire for.
Okay.
Those are, 1, empathy. Empathy is important because it allows you to cast yourself on the role of the other person, the other team, whether it's a customer, a vendor, a subordinate, a peer, or even a superior or the board, and seeing the world through their eyes and being able to adjust your messaging, your posture, or your strategy, your solution to them is a superpower, I would call it. And so empathy is really important. Okay. And you can actually interview for that too. The second one is strategic thinking. I think of it as sort of that ability to have a bird's eye view, to zoom out and say, why does it all matter? How's it all connected? What's the context of things? It's not always the message itself, but it's the context of that message. It's not always the thing you're doing, but how is it relating to the company, the industry, or even the economy? So that strategic thinking and continuously questioning how does it all fit together is a really, really important skill. And last but not least, and certainly there's a list of 10, but the top 3 also makes for me is this natural curiosity. You're going to want to have passion about peeling the layer of the onion back asking questions that
Mm.
others aren't asking, and being authentically interested in the whys and the whats of the individuals, the company, the solution, the product, market, competitors, etc. I find that leaders that are naturally curious are lifelong learners and bring other people along with that trait.
Yeah. I love those. I love those three. Empathy. As I think about empathy and leadership, I also think of humility a little bit, and just the idea that, you're really tuning in, supporting, serving, caring about others. Some people might say, well, for a leader, that's a weakness. I would disagree. I think you would disagree. I think that's a real strength, particularly when it's married to the other topics, the other characteristics that you talked about around really strategic thinking, big picture thinking. And I love curiosity because that creates a relationship and it creates insights and it just lifts others up. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, if I may, I think humility and curiosity are very closely tied, because if you think you know it all, which would be
Yeah.
the lack of humility, then there is no curiosity left. So I think curiosity shows up as humility. It's one and the other are very closely tied.
Yeah, absolutely. Good insight. Over the course of my career as a leader, I have certainly experienced ups and downs. I've experienced successes and also many failures. Let's talk a little bit about failure in leadership. What makes leaders fail? Why do leaders fail? I know I can think back on a lot of reasons that I have failed over the course of my career, but I'm curious to hear from you as to some of the failures maybe that you've seen or observed in leadership.
Gosh, so so first of all, I do have a belief that failure is temporary along the the road of success. If you don't make some mistakes, and failure would be a big mistake, that's all really failure is. It's just a number of mistakes or one very big one that lead you down the wrong path. It's really just a lesson along the way of success. If you don't learn from your mistake, if you don't touch the stove and burn your hand, you know not to touch it, right? As a child.
Mm.
It's the same in leadership.
Yeah.
In the end, I feel that most of the time, the big mistakes are rooted in some level of stubbornness, not listening to your team, not being
Mm.
open-minded to other ideas. It's not done intentional, but it all has to do with, I didn't see it coming. Well, that was
Mm.
because you didn't pay attention. Because in
Mm.
retrospect, often it's like, gosh, I should have seen that coming. That person was untrustworthy.
Mm.
That competitor had an edge. That compliance thing I didn't pay attention to soon enough. And if you have people on your team that I would say are, truth tellers that help you with that, because one leader can't know it all, it's very important. So it goes back to humility, which you mentioned earlier, is to know that know what you don't know is
Mhm.
very important. Know what you know is easy. Not knowing what you don't know is the hardest. And the only way to make up for that is to surround yourself with people that do and can call you out on it and know that you're open-minded about it, etc. There's one more thing that I have found to be related to this relentless focus and or ignorance, the ignoring of things that are coming at you deliberately or not, which is this real difficulty in today's fast-moving economy, is the balance between thinking agile and staying on task for the longer set of goals. So you can call it in software development called agile and waterfall. You have this goal, you work backwards from the goal, and you are relentlessly focused on that 5-year horizon. But something happens in the meantime, and you got to balance that with, you got to change that. Staying on course is important while at the same time allowing for these tweaks. And that balance between being agile and staying on task for the long-term goal is really, really hard. Those are the judgment calls that sometimes lead to failure.
Yeah, that's really good insight. I think as I think about failure, you mentioned something around having good feedback and having people, truth tellers around you. As for me, oftentimes failure has come when I have not effectively built trust. And one of the key elements of trust is transparency and feedback loops, and people surrounding yourself with people that are willing to be honest and open and sort of shine a light on your blind spots, because as you said, we sometimes don't know what we don't know. And so I think that's critically important from a leadership perspective, is to have those good feedback loops. I love the idea of, relentless commitment to long-term thinking, long-term goals. but along the way, making sure you're doing it in the right way with the right behaviors, with the right people, and bringing people along, to me, seem also pretty critical. In your coaching career, you've been at this for a bit. What are some of the most common challenges that you've seen with leaders that you've worked that
Well, um, I use, let's talk about employee engagement for a second. I think that's
Okay.
important. What is it? Because it relates to the challenges that many leaders are struggling with. To me, the easiest definition of employee engagement is how people feel on Sunday night. You know, if they are feeling, gosh, Monday's coming, I hate the week, that's bad. And if they are like you and I, because we've arrived at a point in our career, we're probably looking forward to most Mondays. It's like, gosh, I can't wait to
Mhm.
go do what we do. That's high engagement, right? And
Mhm.
most leaders are held accountable for KPIs that relate to profit, even though in the world of healthcare, profit is looked at a little differently. Many of the institutions are, of course, non-for-profit still, though. You need to have a P&L that makes sense. You need to have a balance sheet that makes sense. It's still about numbers, readmission rates and
Even in a nonprofit, no margin, no mission.
percent. So put that aside. It's we leaders. We are measured by those tangible financial numbers. On the other side, you have employee engagement, which I think is important. And if you've been in leadership a long time, like you have, Al, you realize that that is actually a lever for profit and performance. Because if people show up on Monday
Absolutely.
excited, connected, passionate, they will unlock their discretionary effort to go the extra mile for customers or patients. And when they do, it ultimately results into better results that will lead to better financial statements. And
Yeah.
unlocking that is really, really difficult for leaders. Is to balance those two things. And it ultimately comes down to the balancing of profit and purpose, the mission and the numbers. And that is a real difficult balance to strike. And doing that the right way is always the tug of war between edge and soul, I call it. So that is a hard and an exciting mission of leadership.
Yeah, I love that idea of balance, because I think in leadership, there are so many things to balance. Our strengths, the flip side of our strengths, become our weakness, right? So the idea that we want to balance profitability or results, whatever the results may be, with the way that we relate to our people and the way we lead the organization, how we get things done, to me, is as important, maybe I would argue more important than what we're shooting for. The what we're shooting for, I say that with a caveat, is obviously critical. We're mission-driven organizations in healthcare. It's all about patients and delivering safe, quality outcomes every day that people can count on. But how we go about delivering those results, how we go about achieving those results, really does matter. And so your behaviors, and as a leader, modeling those behaviors, leading the way from a values perspective, is critically important if you're going to be a successful leader and if you're going to have people that are going to want to
Sure.
come along with you on the journey. So I think it's, really good insight, just a little bit further thoughts as you were talking about the balance of
Yeah,
things.
and now that balance that you are talking about, and I know you as a leader in particular is strongly connected to the purpose of the organizations you've led. They're very large healthcare organizations. You could argue that that mission is more in your face in healthcare. We're saving lives, we're curing
Yes.
diseases, etc.
Yes.
It becomes harder when you're selling burgers or legal advice, right? It's actually not difficult, but it isn't in your face. It's not directly
Mm,
personal, but it's equally important. So I think we in all other industries can learn a lot from healthcare is when you connect the purpose to how you deliver care or how you handle the financial side of the organization connected to care, we can learn a lot from that. Because there is a purpose, an ultimate end user value proposition that we're all striving to connect to. And when we do, we lead better, we do our job better, and so forth.
absolutely. No, well said. Let's talk very briefly about bravery and confidence in leadership. How does that play into good leadership? What role does bravery and confidence have for leadership?
Uh, well, a number of things. In I had to learn this maturing as a leader. In my early days, I would say my confidence was borderline arrogance, right? because we
Mhm.
think in younger years, because something hasn't gone wrong yet, that we know the answer. So there's your confidence in your bravery. And then you get hit on the head a couple times. You realize, whoa, there's other people that know better. And I didn't know all the answers. So then you continue on acting, making decisions and leading, knowing that there is some fear and some unpredictable results that might happen. And you are acting despite of that. And you're making decisions that you think are the best despite of the unanswered questions and the fear that or the danger that might exist. And that's bravery. I think that's bravery. And when you do that well, people around you that look at you as the leader feel more confident and feel more secure, feel more safe. And that confidence is important, especially in light of headwind. Is that you as a leader demonstrate that we will get through this, that I've got you guys, I got the team. We'll figure this
Yeah.
out. We will mobilize the resources. We will put our heads together. That level of confidence provides calmness in the light of potential chaos or danger or insecurity. I think that's critical.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Confidence is critical to team, to mission, to achievement, and particularly to people wanting to be part of the greater good. When a leader exudes confidence, people want to get on board and follow. They feel good. They feel like, all right, we got a plan. We're going somewhere. But as a leader, it's hard sometimes to always feel that confidence because, as you said, the longer you're in leadership, my opening statement, leadership's hard. You make a lot of mistakes along the way, and sometimes your confidence can get shaken. But, standing up and leading with strength, with passion, and with bravery sometimes, because you got to step out and try new things. You got to get beyond your comfort zone if you really want to achieve greatness. And I have found over the course of my career, when I get uncomfortable and I get stretched and I get pushed, oftentimes those are the most exhilarating and gratifying and the best experiences of my leadership career. But if I'm not pushing myself, if I'm not feeling that discomfort, if I'm not exercising a little bravery and showing some confidence, even if I don't feel it completely within me, then I'm really not achieving all that I could achieve. Just some additional thoughts
Well,
around
I
bravery and
love
confidence. In
I
leadership.
love what you're saying there, and I've been unpacking this concept. I'd love your thoughts on it, on confidence, and how do you cascade that through the organization? It's one thing for a retired CEO from a health system to make some real brave decisions and stand by them and exude that confidence. Critically important. How do you get the leaders underneath you and the leaders underneath them to do that as well? And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is this corporate culture across industries of requiring approvals to do certain things. Of course, we need to have some level of cascading of decision making. And still, though, when someone comes to your office as a leader and they say to you, hey, I'm thinking about boss deciding between A, B, or C, and I'd like your opinion, you could say, I think you should do C. Okay. Then they'll go and do that. And when they do that, they know that you have their back. And also when it goes wrong, it's your decision because you told them to go with C. Imagine a situation when they come into your office and say, should we do A, B, or C? And it says, what do you think? Well, I think you should go C, do C. And you say, and you don't think it's the wrong decision. You just don't know whether or not it's the absolute best one, but you say, well, let me know how it goes out, how it works out, and I'll be here to support you if you need my help. Now they own it.
Yeah.
Now it's their bravery, right? So bravery as well as a leader is to allow some decisions to be made by those that are beneath you. When they do, they feel they own it and they have that bravery. And knowing where that line is art, but it's important to cascade.
Yeah, no, it's very, very well said and a very important concept for leadership. If you're the one making all the decisions, if you're the one setting the direction, if you're the one essentially micromanaging everything in your organization's really in trouble because when you're the bottleneck, when you have to be the smartest person in the room, that's not a recipe for success. But when people take initiative, when they come to you with ideas A, B, or C, and you ask those curious questions about what do you think? Why did you pick these three? What do you think is the best one? And then you support them in the journey. That does send a powerful message. In healthcare, for example, when frontline staff who are working every day with patients at the bedside, in the clinic, whatever it may be, they have a great lens on the challenges, the problems, and the issues,
Yeah.
and on how they should be fixed. Well, if you're the one at the top always dictating how things should go, you're going to miss a lot of opportunity for improvement. And so empowering an organization from the front lines on back, not just from the top on down. Yes, the top sense of vision sets the ultimate goals and the strategy, if you will. But if it's not informed by the really smart people that you've gathered around you,
Yeah.
it's going to be
Agree.
of limited success. So really, really good conversation for
I
sure in
love what
leadership.
you're saying, Al, and I think it bears underscoring the fact that if you want to make even cultural change or strategic change, which takes a long time, it's very difficult to move an oil tanker, 5 degrees, these really large organizations. The middle management is the only one that can truly effectuate that change because they're in between understanding what the top of the organization is thinking about doing and what the front lines are actually experiencing. So making those decisions in a vacuum, like you said, would lead to failure.
Yeah, no doubt. I've always believed that the most important and the hardest job in management is middle management because you have all the people above you that think that they're the brightest things ever. And you have the front line, they have the relationship with the frontline staff who are telling you what it's really going on. And they have to somehow manage and bring those two sides together. So investing in the middle of your organization from a leadership standpoint is critical to success. All right, let's wrap up here. Maybe there's one or two concluding thoughts that you would have on leadership for those listeners. As I said at the beginning, leadership's hard, but good leadership, effective leadership matters. So a thought or two that you'd like to leave with the audience around leadership.
Gosh, whatever pops in my mind is unprepared. Maybe I'll give 3 quick nuggets.
Okay.
One, there was a time where I landed my first CEO job, and the founder of that company that hired me as his CEO told me a very important lesson. As I was this new young CEO, I thought, wow, now I get to decide what we will do. And that was an amazing power to have. And he says, actually, the most important power you have is what you're going to say no to. That's a really, really important lesson for me is there's 1,000 wonderful opportunistic things to focus on, but you only have limited time and resources, and helping your organization stay focused on the things that truly matter requires you to say no up to a lot of things, which is an unpopular thing to do. And of course, how you do that matters, but saying no is your most
Yes.
important. I'll remember that. Focus matters. So that's one thing. The second thing that I had to learn, my personality profile is one that exudes confidence, that likes to talk. I'm a salesman that turned sales leader, turned CEO, turned advisor, coach, entrepreneur. So you can probably feel that I like talking, and I had to learn that listening is more important than speaking. So I have this sticky note on my desktop that says wait, which stands for why am I talking? And I always
I love it.
question that. It's like, why am I talking? And then I ask myself, does it have to be said? Does it have to be said now? And does it have to be said by me? And we ask those questions and you answer those questions. You tend to more often than not listen and allow others to bring brilliant ideas forward. So that's the second one.
Yeah,
The
let me
last
just
one,
let me just react to that one because there's one thing my mother used to always tell me. She said, "Al, God gave you 2 ears and one mouth for a reason.
yeah.
Listen more than you talk."
Well, it's
So,
it's an important lesson, and I'll tell you that what's interesting is AI helped in our firm, CxO coaching a bit too, because in some cases our clients allow us to record and analyze, and it also shows you the airtime you have. So the minutes that you're talking, the minutes you're listening. So if your audience hasn't done that, use something like Firefly or Read.ai and actually measure how much am I talking and how
mm,
much am I listening. It's a very, very
mhm.
exercise that we certainly do. Last but not least, Cedric asked me to leave you with something. I would kind of turn it around and say to all leaders, think about your legacy. What would it be if today you would leave your job today? What is the legacy you've left? And when you
Yeah.
think about that, how will I be remembered by my peers, my subordinates, my superiors, my customers, or my patients? If they had to describe the energy that I left behind, the legacy that I left behind, what it would be. When you do that, you tend to show up the next day slightly adjusted.
Yeah. No, it's a really good concluding thought around legacy. And, I've often thought that We honor people for their accomplishments, but what really matters and what people remember the most, it's not what you did, but how you made them feel, how you connected with them, how you empathize with them, how you supported them, because the accomplishments flow, but the relationships are what last. And so great thought around legacy. Appreciate that. It's something from my thought as well. Michel, thanks for joining today. I could go on for hours chatting about leadership. It's a passionate subject for both of us, I know.
For sure.
It's been, as I said, as I said at the beginning, it's been a privilege to get to know you over these past 6 months. And for those who are listening, if you want to learn more about coaching or leadership, CxO Coaching, .io is a great resource, a great place to go. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Al, for having me.
Thanks for listening. Leadership is rarely simple, and it's rarely easy. And that's exactly why it matters. My hope is that something from today's conversation gave you a moment to pause, reflect, or see your leadership in a new way. Until next time, lead well.